All right, so here's a Netflix latest original film, Bright, starring Will Smith and Joel Edgerton, among others. Um, Directed by David Ayer, who recently did Suicide Squad, that piece of shit. and yeah, I fucking hate that movie. And This movie came out and got a ton of horrible, horrible reviews from critics. Critics hated this movie. And then once it hit Netflix, people were like, the critics don't know what they're talking about. This movie's pretty good. I assume they all sound like that. There was a big discrepancy between the critics and the fans, which is ironic because recently the latest Star Wars movie came out, The Last Jedi. Critics loved it, and a lot of fans were kind of torn about it. And now we've gone the other way, where critics fucking hated this movie. And then your layman was like, hey, it's pretty good, and stuff like that. So I was curious to check it out. Like, the furthest I had gone was like when you scroll over it on Netflix and it plays the trailer, and I'm like, good God, that looks horrible. And if you haven't seen Bright yet, like, you don't have to fucking watch it, but like, go ahead and just scroll over to it and let the trailer play, and like that gives you like the whole tone of the movie right there. I thought it was a huge piece of shit. It was an awful movie. This is a terrible, terrible movie. But I'm gonna try to talk about why I think people are saying, hey, it's pretty good and stuff like that. First off, it's what it tries to do is it tries to combine like a kind of a gritty urban drama with some action. Think like Training Day or something, with fantasy elements. There are orcs, there are fairies, there are elves. There's a magic wand at play. There's in the trailer. There's a line where the orc, played by Joel Edgerton, he's like, "It's a magic wand," and it's the best. Anyway, so that's the kind of setup. Will Smith finds himself paired with this orc. Joel Edgerton. Fuck it. I don't. Yeah, I'm not gonna even use the characters' names. Jacoby, I think it is Jacoby. One of those. Fuck it. It's Joel Edgerton. I recognize you through that orc makeup. Anyway, he teamed up with him, and Will Smith don't like no orcs. For that matter, nobody does. It's basically like the setup is kind of like Alien Nation. I don't know if anyone really knows of that movie or the show for that matter anymore, but that's the kind of setup. And I'm like, all right, well, we have the typical buddy cop movie, and the partner doesn't trust his new partner. We've seen that a million times. But it kind of doesn't really go that route so much. Like, it's a very small portion of the movie, because when the movie starts, they've already been buddies for at least a little bit. Like, the orc is a new buddy, but it kind of glosses over that aspect, which is kind of weird, because that's where some of the dramatic material comes in, right? When a human has to work with an orc, but I guess they just didn't want to deal with that aspect. So instead, we start off with this really poorly directed scene, and I realize it's silly to say because the whole movie is poorly fucking directed. But it opens with the scene where an orc guns down Will Smith, and then we kind of flash forward to when he's better again, and he just has more distrust for his orc friend, and I'm like, why is that opening scene even fucking necessary? Because already humans don't trust orcs that much and don't want to work with them, so we already have that in play. So why even have like the injury going for it? I mean, they reference it sometimes. There's this weird fucking side plot where basically it's like the DEA wants to have Will Smith frame his orc partner and admit that he let the orc who gunned down Will Smith get away, which goes nowhere. Not really. It ends up in this really like, oh, of course that happened kind of way. But whatever, what the fuck ever. But what's pretty evident, like right off the bat, is that this movie feels cheap. And I have to say feels cheap because apparently it cost $90 million to make this piece of shit. And the only thing I can, say to that is like, good God, Will Smith's payday must have been like $60 million. because this feels like a low budget fucking movie. Like all the red herrings are there for like low budget movie. Like one big sign of a low budget flick is very few locations, and Bright tends to hang around in the same location for long periods of time, and they revisit the same locations for long periods of time. So there's not a lot of spots they travel to. Like, of course, it makes things a lot cheaper budget wise. So how this racked up fucking $90 million price tag, beyond me, because Netflix certainly doesn't spend that much as far as marketing goes. Whatever. But also the writing is like piss poor. It's so bad, and the humor feels forced, and everything is about the plot is telegraphed directly to the viewer. They don't let the viewer like figure shit out on their own. And I'm going to do something in a bit that I haven't done in like one of these video reviews. I'm actually going to read some comments. I'm going to go on Reddit and read some comments and like, fire back and shit like that. But like one Reddit user commented that, like for example, in an action scene, Will Smith is yelling to his partner, "Wait for the reload." Like an audience member couldn't figure out why they're ducking for cover while this guy is shooting at him or something. Or Will Smith saying like the glass is bulletproof, and he says it like several times. It's like, all right, we get it. Like just show us. Don't tell us. Show us. So anyway, here's these two fucking buddies, and there are elves and shit, and of course the elves are like high class motherfuckers, really annoying, as they always are, fantasy or not, or like old timey fantasy, like Lord of the Rings fantasy, and so the movie plods along, and then we find out there's a magic wand, and like magic wands are basically considered like a super weapon of sorts. Everyone wants to get their hands on one. They're worth a lot, but only a Bright can touch a wand, because if a regular Joe Schmo picks up a wand, he just explodes. That sucks. Guess who's gonna have to pick up a wand come the end of the movie, and turns out to be a Bright. I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but it's fucking Will Smith. So that's it. And there's like an evil elf chick. Noomi Rapace plays the evil elf chick, and she's after it. So what starts as what you think is going to be this like gritty, urban cop drama, kind of turns into this like almost feels like Warriors. The orc and Will Smith end up stumbling upon this elf chick who's trying to get the wand away from the bad elf. And so basically they're kind of chased, and all these gangs are after them, because like nearby gangs, hear about what's going on, and they want the fucking wand, and that's kind of the fucking movie. And it's it doesn't know what it wants to be. Like some of it's like that urban cop drama, some of it tries to be like an allegory, because like all the orcs are basically thugs, and like really bad ones at that. It's pretty bad. Some of the set design and costumes are gross. The makeup's not too bad, so I'll give credit where it's due. And then sometimes it wants to be fucking underworld and goes into this like action scenes that just feel weird. And they kind of suck all the tension out of the movie because it's being silly. And that's like, kind of like the fucking movie. It's just really poorly written and just really, really boring, to be honest. And like everyone's a fucking asshole. Like Will Smith's an asshole. The gangs are all assholes. The orc played by Joel Edgerton, he's like the most interesting character, and we don't see like we should have seen more of him, because he's the one being alienated by everyone. Like his orc kind don't want anything to do with him, because he's kind of turned. He's like working with the humans. He's shaved down his teeth, his giant like tusks. And of course the humans hate him because he's a fucking orc. So, but we don't really get to see too much of his life and what he has to deal with. And I mean, he's easily the most sympathetic character in the bunch, and all we see is basically Will Smith be an asshole to him, like the whole movie. And of course, are they going to find some understanding before the end? I'm sure, I guess. Because the script dictates it. But like, we never get that kind of bonding moment before shit goes down, so it gives them a reason to really like work together as a team. Come on, script writing 101. But who wrote this piece of shit? Fucking, I'll tell you who wrote this piece of shit. This piece of Hollywood trash. A real fucking twat of a person by the name of Max Landis. For those who don't know, Max Landis is the son of John Landis, filmmaker John Landis. And Max just thinks he's like fucking God's gift to cinema. Like, he's the kind of guy who like go on Twitter and like bash all these fucking movies. And he's written shit like American Ultra, Victor Frankenstein, Mr. Right. You know, these awful movies. He did do Chronicle, which was decent. So I got to give him some props for that. But he wrote a piece of shit here. Big surprise. And David Ayer, I don't hate him as a director. You know, he did a decent job. There's a few movies I dug. I thought Fury was okay. Night Watch, something. The Jake Gyllenhaal one. Night Watch? I don't know. I thought that was decent for what it was. But, like, the last couple of movies he's done, whatever the fuck the one was with Arnold and his team, and then especially Suicide Squad, is he feels like a kid who's trying to make, like, big boy movies, right? He's like, oh, I want these tough and gritty people. But the problem is, like, all his characters are fucking assholes, and you don't care about any of it. And it feels really pedestrian. And that rolls into Bright as well. With the exception of Joel Edgerton, I think everyone is... You don't really give a shit about. You know, he doesn't really know how to build characters that you care about and, like, in the time span he wants to do it in. He doesn't let things breathe, and nothing feels organic. So right now what I'm going to do is actually jump onto Reddit and go into the official discussion for Bright. Read some of the comments. You know, these aren't from critics. These are from people like you and me, real people, to see if we can decipher why Bright is, I think, right as of right now, the most watched like stream movie of all time. Fuck. So I'm gonna fire back at some of these things. Let's see. We got one user who says, "I am baffled by these comments. This was one of the most tone-deaf, plotting, and pointless films I've seen in recent memory." No need to read anymore. This guy got it right. Here we go. We got another user that says, "Finally saw it. OMG, this movie was awesome. I love the visuals and fantasy-like setting. I like the two leads, though Jacoby was a more interesting character. I kind of feel like Noomi was wasted, but she is always a good actress. She was hot as well. Smith didn't seem to phone it in. I can't wait for the sequel." There you go. Smith absolutely did phone it in. He's a charismatic dude, but it's been a little while since he's done something that just, you know, didn't feel like Will Smith was just being Will Smith, right? He's kind of like a Bruce Willis in that regard. You know, Bruce Willis is Bruce Willis in every fucking movie now, with the exception of Looper, which he was great in. So let's see. We got another user that says, "I found it great fun." No, you didn't. It's Zootopia meets Fifth Element. Sure. if that's what you want. Another user states, "Pretty enjoyable. I thought the world building and exposition in the first half was great, but the creative energy seemed to dissipate in the second half, which made it a bit of a formulaic slog towards the end." That's a good point, and I think that probably touches upon one of the reasons why people like this movie is the concept. The concept is sound, really. It's sci-fi and fantasy always provides filmmakers to create these really interesting kind of analogies and allegories that relate to what's going on today or something in our past, or, you know, what have you. And they're able to use kind of these fantasy elements to make it more digestible, you know, for the average moviegoer. Now, while I think that was an interesting concept, was it capitalized on in the movie? Fuck no. You know, this is like, can you imagine, like, The fucking Wire with, like, orcs and elves and shit? That would have been awesome. That's not what we have here. This is really bad. So I get why people would, you know, kind of flock to it initially because of the concept. You know, I get that. Let's see. We got another user that says, "This was a very entertaining movie. The concept was done very well considering how difficult it would be to not come across as completely cartoonish." Oh, it does. It does. A magic wand. things like the fairy bit in the first 10 minutes were nice touches. The obvious parallels are movies like Men in Black and Fifth Element, so it's not like this kind of thing is a completely new concept. I'm not sure where the Fifth Element comes into play. I guess because the good elf they kind of run across, she's a bit like a what the fuck was her name? Was it Lilu? Fuck it, Mila Jovovich from Fifth Element, and that she like doesn't talk and she's kind of skittish, but it turns out like she knows English towards the end, so her not talking was kind of pointless. I don't know. So yeah, I think that's enough comments for now. But so you're kind of seeing what people are digging about this, and which is fair play. But here's the big thing, and here's the thing that worries me about this movie, and about why people like this movie. And I think it all comes down to this. It's not that I think that people think this movie was good. I think it's that they think it was good enough. And that's a very important distinction to make, because think about when you go to the movie theaters. I go to the movies all the fucking time. It's my life, so that's me. But not everyone does that, Sometimes people go once a month, once every 3 months. And if they go to the theater, they want to see something, that's worth their value of them, getting dressed, going out, reserving a seat if they have to. Do they see it in IMAX? Do they see it in 3D? There's all these bullshit formats, that theaters come up with to try to, get your money. Do they want to see it at a wine and dine theater? Do you want to see fucking D-Box or some bullshit? What kind of movie do you want to see? Most people who don't go to the theaters often, they don't want to see dramas. They're not about to go out and see The fucking Darkest Hour, with Gary Oldman, and D-Box. You feel it every time he smokes a cigar. But no, they want to see a popcorn movie. They want to see Marvel's latest. They want to see a Star Wars. Or they want to see something funny. They want to see a really good horror movie. Something that really kind of stands out and is fun to talk about. And when they see something that doesn't kind of deliver those very particular things they're looking for, whether the movie be good or bad, they might come out disappointed. Now, where streaming services differ is that there's not, any effort put into it. They're already paying the monthly service. They don't really think about that. They can sit at home. They can order a pizza. They can sit fucking naked, for all they care, and just watch this movie. So when a movie like Bright, comes along, it's like, well, they're watching it and they're like, okay, that's an interesting concept. And, oh yeah, it had some action, and Will Smith, and he had a few good lines, and I like that Will Smith. And, this, and it was really interesting, and I want to see where they were taken. And that was interesting. It's no Citizen Kane, because everyone's seen Citizen Kane. But it wasn't bad. No, it was bad. It was super bad, but it was good enough to stay at home and fucking stream on your TV while you're on your phone playing whatever fucking mobile game you want to play, or, just jerking it or something. I don't know. And that's what worries me, because Netflix, and this goes for every streaming service too, will know that they have a formula on their hands. And they're like, all right, here's what we need to make, and audiences will eat that up. Look at some of their exclusive. They signed Adam Sandler on to a 5 or 6 picture deal. Then I don't know if you've seen any of his Netflix movies. I think he has 3 out right now. Anyway, they're fucking garbage, but they bring in the numbers. And I'm ashamed to say that I'm not helping, because I've watched those movies too, for the same reason everyone else has watched them, because it's there. It's like, well, I'm curious to see it. I want to see how it is. Now, the difference between me and a lot of these people is oh my God, that was horrific. That was bad. Never again. But in the case of Bright, that was something that's oh, okay, it was good enough. So with that going forward, I think Netflix is going to be a little bit more, I guess, formulaic with what they come up with. Not that they weren't anyway. I'm not naive. I know filmmaking is a business. Companies are looking to make money, but it's always been that fine line between the business end and the creative end. And when it comes to the streaming service, because there's not a bigger risk in terms of like marketing or putting it in theaters, they don't have to worry about distribution as much. Marketing, you just put a fucking ad on Netflix. People go on Netflix every day. You open it up and you see the ads for the latest movies. That's all they have to do because everyone's going to see it. And that's it. And that's what we're looking at in terms of like fucking streaming movies at home, is that a lot of them are not going to be good because they don't have to be. They only have to be good enough. And that sucks. It really sucks. And I guess I'm part of the people enabling that. I'm not trying to start some movement that's like down with streaming movies or something. No, there's a lot of great original streaming content that I enjoy, But this is just my 2 cents on why critics hated Bright and why a lot of people seem to enjoy it. Critics rate Bright like they rate every movie they see, as they should. How does it stand on its own 2 legs as a film, as a story that works, that moves, that's compelling, that's entertaining, that's exciting, and Bright is none of those things. It's just interesting enough to kind of turn on and watch, and people were like, it's okay, I like the world building. It's like Lord of the Rings meets modern day. It's not like Lord of the Rings, it's a fucking shit-ass movie. Of course, the sequel has already been greenlit. Fortunately, Max Landis doesn't seem to be, taking part in the sequel. I don't know, that may change. I have no hopes whatsoever for a sequel, but you know what? If play devil's advocate, how to turn this franchise around, make it interesting. I would say just, make your sequel if you have to, but like, make it a series, get some decent writers, get a good showrunner behind it. You don't need big actors, I don't think, maybe a few notables and shit like that. I mean, and make it a series, kind of flesh out the world. People are obviously interested in the world. Netflix is obviously interested in shooting in as few locations as possible. So that's where TV really comes into play. Give the world some room to breathe, and don't make it so fucking on the nose. Jesus. That's what I would do. But there's a sequel in our future, and that's the kind of future we're gonna have to live in. So there's that.